Hey guys, welcome back to the farm. If you're watching this, you're probably seeing this maybe Christmas Eve. So first and foremost, this year's been, the last couple of years has been very overwhelming as far as really humbling a guy, and it all stems, a lot of it stems from the channel here and folks reaching out, and I feel very blessed. So first and foremost, I wanted to send a big thanks out to everybody, wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll be doing some other videos here going into the new year. But today's video, we're going to jump right into this. We're going to talk about a multitude of things. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5 topics or products that you need going into the habitat season. Where most people fail with habitat work, the improvement side of it is a lot of it is the gear, not having the right equipment to do that. And I am one of those, the reason I'm coming to you with this right direct honest is because I am one of those that failed and struggled with this for years. So it's well worth taking the time to stop and really purchase. And it's not a lot of money to get up and running, but when you have these in your hands, when you're doing these, especially when it involves safety, go the extra mile, spend a few extra dollars, and when you're in the timber and you're doing these improvements, it'll pay off. You can stay safe. It'll speed the process up. The product looks better when you're done. And like I said, first and foremost, keep touching on that, but the safety part of it. So the number one thing that we're going to talk about here today, guys, is if you have not done this, please reach out, ask questions, and prepare yourself before going into the timber and just making habitat improvements. So that's number one. Research. Make sure, kind of in conjunction with that is don't ever do this alone. I highly recommend getting a buddy system going here. Family, wives, the son, the daughter, father, son teams, whatever the case is, really stopping and preparing yourself with some help before you go in there. It's just freak accidents. I've got a couple stories over the years from clients. One major last year, and he might be tuning into this, that was kind of a scare. So I don't want to ever get that phone call from anybody, and especially when you have so much of a potential, going into the rest of the entire season to try to prepare for the hunting season, and just one wrong move, it doesn't matter what we do here or what we talk about here today. If we get banged up, we're not going to be in the timber come fall. So make sure that you really take the time to buddy up and make a plan. So where the plan starts is, before we even get to the timber side of this, or we even get to the improvement side of this, where this whole process starts. I'm a huge believer about this, and it'll sound like I'm trying to be, bringing the whitetail coach thing here to you, driving this home. But the biggest thing is prepare with the design. I see time and time again, and in my profession, folks either call when we're first building the property, right, or they call after it's been built by themselves or someone else, and it's not working and it's a total disaster. So if you can kind of follow the steps and gear yourself up for that, start a design. Now, if you're not going to reach out to a consultant, that's perfectly fine. It's one of the reasons I have this channel. It's free information. None of you have a paid prescription or a paid subscription coming into this channel. So it's all free. That's why it's here. But the reason I do it is to try to get you guys the right information to stay safe and be productive about doing so. So team, design. If you're not going to reach out to a consultant, like I said, follow the steps here through the video. It's a quicker process to reach out to somebody if you're in that need, because it's 2 minds working against one property. Maybe it's 3 minds working against one property. I'm just blessed, guys. I've said this before, and I'll say it 100 times again. I'm just blessed that in my career I get to see this year 60 some clients on the road, 20 some clients here, and some hunters here on the property. So, but I'm not going to just come to you and tell you kind of a BS story and make this up, that this was just something that I did. I grabbed all this stuff together. Maybe you got a buddy, maybe you didn't, went in the timber and cut all this stuff, and voila, we've got habitat, perfect habitat. and movement of deer, and it doesn't happen that way. There's a lot of strategy that goes into that before this even starts. Get good sources of information, make sure you're getting the information from somebody that's actually doing it, not just someone that's seeing it online and hey, that, you know, looks cool and maybe I'll make a neat video about it, right? This is stuff that I've you know, that I take, like I said, take time to bring to you guys, to you know, learn from my experience, you know, the old school of hard knocks, if you will. So a lot of things you can learn here, but like I said, before you even go into the timber, have a design, implement the strategy on your property, on paper, per an aerial, boots on the ground, flag it out. So we might as well start right here. Flag it out, paint it out, go in, set your transitions, make sure before you even, you know, separate topic and separate world here, but all kind of ties together. Before you go in and cut food plots out, before you go in and make openings to create food plots, take a can of paint, go in with you, mark your center lines out for your transitions. And I designed everything off, all my properties off from hunt stands, so it's GPS pinpoint accurate. So when I give this to you as a client and we are finished with that day, it's just not a screenshot and a picture saying here, this is what it looks like when it's complete, or this is where it is. You guys could be, you know, 20, 50 yards off, as I always tell people, and that 20 or 50 yards off can really get folks in trouble. So when I'm there, my deal is we walk it and we build it with each other, GPS pinpoint accurate, hunt stand is on, and that is following us when we're laying it out. I have the tracker on. So when you return to lay that out before you start any of this, take the can of paint, walk down your transitions. If there's certain trees that we need out, mark them, whatever the case is. Very cheap, because if you don't use that, what you're going to find yourself doing, ribbon, I've got ribbon right here. If you don't lay this out first after your design is done, what you're going to find is you're going to be kind of wandering around. Next thing you know, you're off your transition. You look up, you're too close to your fence row, and now your access is boogered, stuff like that. So lay the design out. First step is put the design on paper, make it make sense. If you believe in it, then you can make it work. Now, as we've always said, it's about you know, it kind of varies on the year, right? But probably 30 to 40% of the properties that I go on need hinge cutting, because habitat isn't at deer reachable heights. But you know, some properties only need mulching. It's too thick. We need to open them up. No sense in adding any other debris down when the density is correct in those bedding areas. But if your property needs hinge cutting, we're going to touch on a couple things here. If it does need hinge cutting, a lighter saw is always better. Now there's a point there where your saw can be too light, right? Too small. And the reason for that is too small means you know, you're not going to be able to the performance and to cut the tree, leaving the cambium layer on the other side is what I'm saying. Making sure that tree is going to stay alive. You need some power to get that done, so you don't want to go too small. This is my steel that I purchased years ago when I was with John Deere. It's a MS-291. It's a steel. I'm a believer in steel saws, but I've also got, you know, Husqvarna products as well. So get one that fits you, that you are not struggling with in there, because if you struggle, you're going to get tired, and when you're tired, accidents happen. So saw, good sharp chain. Make sure your chain is sharp. When you're doing the habitat side of it, you can do 16, 18-inch bar, 14, 16, 18-inch bar. I wouldn't go any crazier than that. It adds weight. And your stuff that you're doing with hinge cutting side of it, now we're not talking about logging right now, but the hinge cutting side of it, you're looking for that, you know, anything up to you know, 6, 8, maybe 10-inch trees. So lighter the saw, the better. Not necessarily the smaller the saw. Just make sure you've got something that's good performance wise, but it's not going to break the bank and not going to break your back. Safety side of that, with what comes with that saw, is a helmet. They're like 30 bucks, guys, or 20 bucks, or whatever they are now. You can actually buy these in a pack. I've got my chaps. I should have grabbed those in the shop here, hanging on the wall. You know, wear a good set of chaps, and also good protective gloves, eye protection. Even though you got the, you know, the screen here, get your safety glasses on. I've got a set that's clear, and I've also got a kind of a tinted sunglass, more construction grade sunglass that I use as well. So ear protection, so you got your ear protection on it. You've also got the chip guard here in front. So, and the most important thing, especially when we're hinge cutting, you know, is to make sure that nothing's getting on your melon. When you are cutting this stuff, guys, make sure you're watching with the hinge cutting side of it. You're hinge cutting smaller trees, so you're not necessarily you know, cutting big timber down. And not often you have to watch for widow makers and stuff like that, but that's something that could very well be you know, hanging up there. And when you take one of those trees down, you know, always watch above. You know, it's not just in front of you on the ground, always watch above. And then also always watch out for not only yourself, be courteous and be really aware of where that you know, that person that's helping you is. So one of the biggest tools, guys, to help this whole program out is this is the Habitat hook. They make these in you know, the Habitat hook with Nick Nation makes these. Reach out to Nick and highly recommend. This is actually the extended one. It's the round metal. They also make like a square metal one that's maybe a little bit shorter, 6-8 foot, just kind of more of a pusher. But this here does extend. I think it's 12 foot, 10 foot, something like that. So not you know, seriously heavy, but it's definitely something that you can carry around the timber. What this is for hinge cutting purposes. You're always doing for hinge cutting purposes, you're always doing the pushing with the front hooks, and you're also able to you know, that guide there for you know, one guy is cutting, one guy is pushing, so directional hinge cutting as we speak. The other side of it obviously is for hooking that you know, and helping pull. Now if you're using the hook side of it, this to help pull, in other words, if you're using that side of the hook, you're pulling it at yourself. So be very careful and very aware that you're not landing that on your head. But the old days, what we did is we without the Habitat hook, we were always pushing and pulling this stuff by hand. Next thing you know, you're trying to grab it by hand, and you're exposing your your abdomen area, and somebody's cutting next to you, and you're too close. You're too close to the sawyer, and things can go wrong in a hurry. So highly recommend reaching out and getting those. Get one that fits you. Like I said, I'm a little bit taller guy, so I can get away with a little bit shorter Habitat hook. This is actually the longest one I've had. I had the shorter one before. This one worked great last year all through the Habitat season, so looking forward to that. This next tool here, guys, is something that, and the list goes on and on and on here, right, but what you could have. But this is actually one of the handy tools that I kind of implemented and started using years ago. It's just a construction belt, but it's got a hook on it there for, this is a 3-pound roughneck. I know there's multiple different companies that, in multiple different sizes, but you want something that's pretty good size. And the reason that you've got the hammer is because in the pouch itself, and I recommend don't buy one of these that are cheap, because it'll be breaking on you. One of those things, it's a safety feature, so you don't got stuff hanging out of your pockets and wrenches and everything else. But one of the reasons to have a good pouch is because of this right here. So the larger that your tree is when you're trying to hinge cut, or if it's a situation where you're doing some timber and taking some of that timber, if you are the person that's removing your canopy on your transitions or doing some select cut stuff, you can larger the tree, more help or more persuasion sometimes you need. The trick is, guys, when you're hinge cutting larger trees, is to go slow. It's all a slow process, right, for safety, but a slow process for hinge cutting, because you try to keep that cambium layer on, whether the tree's 6 inches or 26 inches. Make sure that it's slow. So when you're pulling the tree, when you're pushing the tree, make sure that it's slow. The larger the tree, the slower that you go. So in other words, I start out, depending on the size of the tree, the species, you can use these. I always have 3. I have 2 polys or 2 plastics wedges, and then I also have the and I think this is a couple pounds as well. This is the steel wedge. So that steel wedge is the one you're going to really drive home with your hammer. and I've got some pictures here I'll show you of myself doing that on a couple of projects, you know, over the years. But that slows the process. What it does is it saves the tree. So if you don't have these, what you're going to find yourself doing is you're going to find yourself cutting the tree further into that into the log, and you're going to exceed and go past that strong cambium layer that we need to keep alive. So what happens is, by doing that, you get so far away and the tree is so heavy, or you get so far through the tree is so heavy, is when it goes, it tears it right off, completely tears it off the stump. So the object is the bigger the tree, slower the process, slow it down, get away from it. The sawyer is the only one at the hinge. So the last thing that we're going to talk about here, guys, is the hinge itself. Do not, if you find yourself and you prove to yourself that you need hinge cutting, the design's done, the safety features have all been touched on, and you're ready to start doing this, do not, I repeat, do not high hinge cut. Now, you'll hear a lot of folks out there that say it's diversity. The whitetails, you know, need something diverse. They don't want like a monoculture of all hinge cuts at the same height. If you tune into a channel that talks about, and I've caught slack every year, I catch slack, I get hate mail, and last year even one of the other channels reached out and told me how stupid this sounded. Anyway, I'm here to tell you, this is the deal. If you reach out, if you turn on one of those channels and they start talking about high hinge cutting, you need to turn it off. Go to another channel, get some more information, because obviously the person doesn't have enough experience. They are ignoring, maybe they got experience, but they're ignoring the safety feature of it. Anytime that you put this saw, I'm going to show this to you here. Anytime that you put this saw on a high hinge cut, I'm 6'6", so it makes it even worse. There's no need. Anytime that you have this saw at your face level, and that chain, something happens, it pinches, it kicks back, it's at your face level. It's never here. I always hinge cut at my waist or below. It's what I try to do at my waist, is because it's a comfortable. I wish I had somebody here run the camera, guys, so we could, you know, make this a little more clear. But it's just keeping it low, keeping your hinge cuts flat. Don't be angling your hinge cuts. Keep it flat. What this does by keeping it at your waist or right there is because it's comfortable, and you can do more hinge cutting and not get tired, and then not have to worry about that safety issue. So use them at your waist. If you're 5'6", it's at your waist. If you're 6'6", it's at your waist. Use that right there at that movement point, that strong point that we all have to hold onto that saw so it doesn't get away from you. Like I said, it might sound like a rant on them high hinge cuts, but deer do not need cover from above. They need side cover. And when you're hinge cutting trees, simple math, 60-foot tree, 6-foot guy, you hinge cut it at your face, which you don't want to do. You hinge it, you've only got about 10% of that tree that you're using that's on the ground that's reachable to deer. Will the stump itself, because you're getting sunlight to it, will the stump, for that 6-foot stump, regenerate some shoots off from it because the sunlight's getting to it? Yes, it will. But the whole trunk down until just the top is non-reachable by the deer, because all of those shoots and all of that vegetation that we're putting at deer height, it's growing off the top of that. It's not growing off the bottom. It's going to grow towards the sunlight. It's very seldom does it come off the bottom of the tree. Object is to get this at the deer's head height, create side cover. Do not make tornado effects. That's something that we're going to talk about in other videos. But directional hinge cut. Always hinge cut away from the sides of your lines of travel, your corridors, any of your transition areas, any of that stuff. It all goes to the outside. Don't make arches across your lines of travel, and that comes with high hinge cuts. There's no need to do that. So you're pushing everything away, and you're not paralleling your corridors, your transitions. You're putting all that debris perpendicular, and it's I mean, there's a point that it can kind of look man-made and too manufactured, right? But trees are going to do what they're going to do. You're always going to have some of that canopy and that layering on, but your idea is you don't want too much of that. You don't want a canopy. You don't want them 6 foot tall and some low and some high. The reason is because the deer doesn't go low and go high. They're not critters that need to crawl through it. We're not making cat habitat. We're making we're making deer habitat. There's only a 6-inch, 8-inch variation between, you know, immature and maybe a foot, you know, in variation between immature deer and mature deer when they're wandering through that stuff. So very, very important, guys. Like I said, the high hinge cuts are a huge safety issue, and there's no need for them because that's not what you're trying to create. So go elsewhere. If you don't learn anything, ever take anything from this channel, if you don't take anything from the tools that I just spoke about, you don't take anything about, you know, the cheap additives, anything, take away from this, never do high hinge cuts. It could save your life. It's something that I feel very strongly about, and always have somebody helping. To me, I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to a lot of that stuff. I want it to look a certain way, but the more experience that you get, then you can fine-tune that. But like I said, guys, the biggest thing is safety, having the right products before you start, so it makes it an enjoyable experience for you out there, and you're not struggling with it. So hopefully some of these tips worked, but the biggest thing is, guys, going back to the beginning of this video, we're going to try to keep it just as short as we can here, but going back to the beginning of this video, make sure that before you do any of this, you feel 100% on your design. You can get on and off your property. Don't do your hinge cuttings or any of your habitat bedding material work that you're doing on the outside of your transition. In other words, between your access and your fence lines and your transition, it all needs to be interior, because that rim there that we do all the way around the property is non-habitat, so you can get in and out of that stand. So just kind of go over, reach out, make a plan, have a plan of attack, and have some of the right tools, and it'll make that you know, your habitat experience a lot better. So if you have any questions, guys, reach out. Some of this stuff, there's I need to get better at some of the product reviews, but in this deal there's a lot of product. Reach out to Nick Nation, your local steel dealer, or Husqvarna. You know, jump on Scheels. They've got some gloves, hats, eyeglasses, whatever the case is. Get some quality products, get a team, and find success through habitat improvements this year, guys. Be safe, and Merry Christmas.